Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Pittsburgh Aquaria. You've actually never seen my face before, so this is what I look like. Behind me is my 10-gallon Planet Aquarium. I've had it set up for like 3 years, so let's take a closer look at it. Alright, so this is, like I said, it's a 10-gallon Planet Aquarium. A lot of things have changed with this tank. I've added new plants, new fish. So let's just go over everything for it. Like I said, it's 10 gallons. I have it's like a $60 Marine Land strip LED. And then I just have like a 10-gallon Tetra Whisper filter hang on the back. And then I also have a tiny little sponge filter. It doesn't really do much, but I like it. Just adds another extra filtration to it. I didn't really understand when I first set this tank up, building scale for a tank. As you can see, I have this large tree with Java moss all on it. And then I just have like these giant rocks here with this huge Anubias batari. And then I have this awesome Amazon sword in the back. I'm seeing new growth, new leaves come out about once a week. It has a new leaf. Anytime I see any browning of the leaves, like this one back here has a little bit of algae, the one in the very back, I'll just trim that off and that'll promote new growth. This stem in the back, it's AR, Alternantha renicky. It's a tissue culture plant, so that's why it's so small. I've had it for like 4 weeks now, and I haven't really seen much vertical growth, but it is growing new leaves, so hopefully, in a couple months that it'll actually start growing vertically. And this plant in the front, this is S. repens. Very cool plant, also a tissue culture. You can see how much plants you get. Like this is just 1 cup of tissue culture. They haven't propagated yet, but I mean, you can see right here, that root system, it's starting to grow. I'm getting small plants, small new leaves right in the center there on all these plants. That's all new growth. So that plant's doing well. I have a Anubias petite just glued to a little pebble in between that rock and the wood. This is micro sword. I used to have a huge carpet of it in this tank, and then I had to move, so I took everything out. And yeah, this is like the only plant that pretty much survived out of the whole entire group. I probably had like 15 of them in here. Started off with 1 plant and they all propagated. So if you want a good carpeting plant, kind of looks like dwarf sage. I never had luck with dwarf sage. I had it in this tank and it just melted away. This plant in the back, it's Echinodorus parviflorus, I believe. I've had this thing in here since the start of the tank. It's had its ups and downs. Right now it's not doing extremely well, but I am getting new leaves. I just have to trim back, like obviously that leaf there, that thing's done. I gotta trim that. Down here, it's a Glosso. It's also a tissue culture plant. I used to have a bunch of it, and then like I said, I had to move. So a lot of it uprooted and I lost most of it. This is pretty much what was left. And I mean, it's not dying, but it's not doing that much. I don't run any CO2 in this tank or anything like that. This is another tissue culture. It's Cryptocrine Wente Brown. This is probably like 6 plants just all shoved into this corner here, but it looks awesome. Like I said, this is just a big Anubias batari. We got leaves growing out of the tank. And then I have a bunch of Salvinia. As far as substrate, it's C-Chem fluorite. And it's done really well for me. The only thing I've added is API root tabs. Once you add those, like, it's just an explosion for root feeder plants. I don't really dose this tank. When I do a water change, I'll add a little bit of Flourish XL to combat algae growth, and a little bit of iron. I've been adding iron for the AR. Iron's just good for red plants. I'm saving all this salvinia. I have a bunch of it, and I'll show you what I'm saving it for. All right, guys, so behind me is my new 20 long that I set up. I just have the hardscape in there and the light. I've been wanting to set this tank up for probably a year, and I finally bought the tank, bought all the rocks, the wood, the substrate, so that's all in there. My filter comes in tomorrow. I got a aqua clear for it, hang on the back. See how the flow works once I set the tank up. I might get like a small power head to stick on the other end, just so there's no dead zones in the tank. But let's take a closer look at it. All right, so this is the 20 long right here. Like I said, I've wanted to set a 20 long up ever since I had this 10 gallon and got into planted tanks. I always wanted to upgrade and get something bigger. It was between the 20 long and the 29. 29 is same dimensions, it's just taller. But I wanted, I felt like aquascaping, the 20 long would be a little easier. The tank is, or the light, I mean, it's a Finex Planted Plus ALC. There's like 5 different models of the Planted Plus by Finex. I went with the ALC because it had the highest par rating between all of them. So that's the one I went with. My lights are set to timers. It turns on at 9 a.m. and turns off at 8 p.m. So this one will be the same thing. It's hooked up to the same timer. It does have like a 24/7 setting, but obviously I'm not going to use that since I'm using the timer. But yeah, I mean, it's a crazy bright light. Like the Marineland LED, it's done well for me. It's like a $60 light. This Planted Plus was like, I ordered off Amazon, it was like 110 bucks. I can definitely tell that it's way brighter than the Marineland. Really the only complaint I have is the legs. For a $100 plus light, I expect the legs to be really good. But as you can see, they're pretty much just like plastic, and they don't really lock into place. Like, I feel like if I bump this light, the thing would come crashing down. The Marineland, the $60 Marineland, the legs are built in, they're adjustable, and they're metal. I mean, this thing's not going anywhere. I mean, the legs on this light are adjustable too, but they're not built in. All you do is you slide them into these. It's like a rail, pretty much. You just slide it right onto the light, and it feels pretty loose. But I mean, I like the light. It's gonna look really good once I have plants in there. But yeah, so pretty much as far as setting this tank up, I went with Eco Complete. So underneath all of this sand is a layer of Eco Complete. I can actually show you on the side here. So yeah, all that, all this black substrate, that's all Eco Complete, and then I just capped it with sand. And this is what I was talking about with depth, and this is what I learned in my 3 years of having a fish tank. Is I understood that I didn't use any depth or scale. So with this tank, I'm gonna be really picking and choosing my plants. I didn't really know anything about plants and how big they were, how big they can get, certain plants. Like that Amazon sword in the 10 gallon, I probably would have never bought that because it doesn't really fit the scale of the tank. Same with the Newbies Batari, that thing is huge, and I definitely wouldn't have bought that. But yeah, I'm really pleased on how this hardscape turned out. Pretty much I went with like a dual island. I banked both of the corners, the back corners up, so it's thin in the front, and it's thin through this little pathway here. There's not much depth to that, but in the back behind these islands is where I banked up the substrate, and that's where the stems are going to go, and you'll actually be able to see them. I'm thinking about putting like Java ferns on these pieces of wood here to kind of fill out this empty space here, and then to the side of it, both sides of these, there's going to be stems. Same with over here, I'm going to have stems here. I want to leave this pathway open because I think that'll look really good. And then, you know, just some like foreground plants along the rocks here. Just all along here, just foreground plants, probably like dwarf sag or pogo stamon is a good plant as well. For the foreground, they stay low. And then just some mid-ground plants, some Hydrocaudal Japan, probably right here. Something over here maybe. AR Mini is a really good red plant. You don't want to go crazy on the red plants. Just a couple here and there. I'll probably get like a red stem in the back, or it will probably be over here if I'm putting the AR Mini over here. The AR Mini is good because it's pretty much like it stays small, and you just get this really dense red bush to it. But yeah, so I'm really excited about this tank, getting it planted, and you know, I'll be putting updates obviously as I get this tank set up. But yeah, so if you guys ever want to do something like this, I can try to explain on like the steps I took. So before I put the substrate in, I made the dual islands and took a picture of it, so I kind of knew where I wanted them to be. I took that all out, put the Eco Complete in. Like I said, I banked it up on the two corners, and then I sloped it because I knew I wanted to have this pathway here. Kept the foreground nice and thin, and then I capped it all with sand after I put the hardscape back in. And then any gaps that I had, like over here, there's like this really big hole. If you don't fill that up over time, that's gonna be a dead zone, and what'll happen is food, fish waste, detritus, anything like that will get stuck in those holes, and you'll just have algae issues. Your nitrates will be high, and that's not what you want. So I just took these pebbles, these accent pebbles that I put all in the tank, and I used those to fill up these holes. And then anywhere that I couldn't put the pebbles, I filled it up with sand. So like this tree is sitting up, this piece of wood, you know, that's a good like 6 inches, and all underneath of it is hollow. So when I was putting the sand in, I just went over top of it and filled all that gaps in the middle there. That way the detritus, once the tank's set up, nothing can get lodged underneath that wood, because obviously I can't get in there. I mean, I glued this wood down to all these rocks, and it's solid. It's not going anywhere. I obviously can't take it out to get all that stuff out of there. So you want to fill your gaps up when you're setting up really any hardscape, and that's something I've learned when I set this tank up. Like under here, I can't get in there and clean all that out without taking these huge rocks out of here. So if I would have filled that up, I wouldn't have that issue. But I didn't realize that when I was setting this tank up and just getting into the hobby. You know, luckily I have a ton of plants in here. There's like 10 different plants for a little 10-gallon, so I don't really have algae issues. I change the water once a week, like 40%. I probably don't even have to change that much. All right guys, so that's gonna do it for today's video. Let me know what you think of the 20 long hardscape. Like I said, the filter should be in tomorrow, and then I have to work all weekend, so I probably can't get plants until a week. And once I get the plants in, fill the tank up, add the API quick start, add the catfish that are in the 10-gallon, buy some snails. That'll get the cycle going. Just do a water change every like 3 days to it for about 2-3 weeks, and then by then the filter media should be all good. The tank should be cycled, and then I can buy some more fish. I'm thinking cherry barbs. Not sure what else yet. Maybe rams, electric blues, or German rams. But yeah, guys, so stay tuned for more videos. I'm really excited, and I hope you guys are too.